It's Anna with It Starts With You, and I'm here with Kash Hovey, who has his own podcast show.
That's correct, yeah. It's On Air with Kash, and thank you, Anna, for having me on your show.
Yeah, of course. So you do know my podcast is a little bit more on wellness for dating culture, right?
Yes.
So we do talk a little bit more on mindful dating. We share a little bit of our traumatic experiences in LA dating culture. What about you? What are some dating experiences? Jumping right on to the topic.
We're just going to go right into it, okay.
What are some of the dating experiences that you've had?
Oh gosh, are we talking about just growing up in LA or just being in LA?
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh. All right, so I'm older than I look, and I remember LA was so different maybe 20 years ago, and this is probably like when reality TV, this is like right before the Kardashians took off, and it was like that whole like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan era. And it was an interesting time because it's like, even I was always like younger than everyone, so I was like, 18, 19, and my friends were like in their early 20s. I'm in an acting class, and it's just funny how everyone's always trying to build something up and they're trying to amplify what they are, and then you realize, oh yeah, I was on set yesterday, and oh yeah, you're dealing with someone, and you realize they were just bragging about an extra job. You would get with people like that, or then someone might name drop you. Oh, so it's interesting, but along the way, I gotta say, I've had a few relationships that really, whether anything happened or not, I just feel like really the most meaningful ones are just people that are still not in my everyday life, but we still, when we catch up, so, oh my gosh, where does the time go? And I'm at that phase in my life.
So what do you think is like the differential between a meaningful relationship for you and like a relationship where, whether it be friends or like a romantic one, what kind of makes the difference in between those kind of?
It's interesting because life does go in cycles. I feel like you're born, you're raised into a family, and then you go to school, you have your school friends, and then where I'm at in life right now, it's an interesting chapter because we go through cycles. There's like after school, like after college and high school, and then there's maybe friends you drift away from. Then you get in your career, and then maybe after 10 years, you're not at that job anymore. And it's not, they're not like people aren't bad, or you just lose touch because maybe they got married, they moved somewhere, and even with social media, you can find out what people are doing all the time. And I think that's an interesting thing with this generation because if you're a millennial, like I'm a millennial, and I think like this new generation, like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's like they grew up with social media being the norm. But if you're like my age, when social media came out, we're like in high school and college, it was one of these things where, oh wow, so-and-so was in my karate class, and that guy, we played baseball together one year, and then it was like you start to see the networks of friends, and it was people maybe you lost touch with, but then sometimes we get reminded of people that, wait, I haven't seen this person in 20 years, but yet I know everything about them. So I feel like that's where people are at right now.
On that topic, do you think the issue really is that people don't really go out that often, as in maybe like touch grass?
Yeah. I know what you mean, because we just pull out our iPhones and we can it's so easy to just get lost in something. We were talking about that too, where let's say, when I was a kid and my dad would mention a movie, let's say he's telling us about like the Nixon administration, Watergate. There's a movie that Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford did called All the President's Men. Let's go watch that. So you would have to watch that, and then every time you would see like maybe Woodward or Bernstein on 60 Minutes. Oh, they're going to be on 60 Minutes. Now it's like you go to your computer, you can pull up any interview you want to hear, you can pull up any documentary. And for a long time, I think movies kept a narrative, and now the information's everywhere. But with that, I do think people want to get out more and experience life.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Like, I feel like there's a want for connection with other people, but at the same time, there's also the social aspect where like people don't actually know how to connect with each other.
Right, yeah.
I think that's like a bigger issue where like the connection, like there's a need for connection, but at the same time, like it's like, how do I talk to this person? What do I say to them? Yeah, and that's sad.
It is. Was there an experience that you had or a friend of yours had where they didn't know how to communicate with someone, or maybe they were interested and they didn't know how to talk? Was there something that you've noticed?
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of like dating gurus and like coaches that tell you, if this and this happens, then you should do this, or if this and this happens, then you should do this and that. But I think like the thing is that sometimes like people take a lot of their coaching or lessons from those gurus, but they don't actually do the personal experience kind of where they like try to take the risk and talk to people to take that experience. And I think that's like part of the learning experience where you do things yourself.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And two, it's like you were saying where people don't, and I'm with you too, like when I was younger, I had no idea how to, and you are a product of your environment, so let's say you're maybe in a more sheltered area and you don't know stuff and you don't have like an older sibling to tell you. I had older cousins who I would see who would like, okay, so they're telling me what this means and that means. And then we only had like movies to really know what was up, and now anyone could just go on and look up what something means, which is, it's very helpful. So I'm like, man, if I was born all these years later, but I'm glad that I have, before digital took over that analog era. But with that, you start to, for me, I always had to even growing up in LA, I always had to watch out for people with agendas, because I like ambitious people. I'm an ambitious person too. And sometimes like we connect, I feel like I connect with someone, but then it's like there is that thing where you do have to get to know someone, you're questioning intentions, and truthfully, it's like I've seen, for me, I stopped being a kid when I was 15. I was like in the business, and I was in an adult world, but even though I was still going, I felt like I was pretending to be a kid more than an adult. Like I had to have this adult persona on at all times. So with that, it was like I saw a lot of things behind the scenes, and then you start to wonder, oh, does this person really like me for me, or they're just trying to get to someone that I'm connected to, or they're gonna ask a colleague of mine if they're gonna write a check for a movie. And it was interesting because even after college, you would get into people in their 20s, and you look at how things were. Like even I remember 20 years ago when it was like we're coming out of college, and remember like that show Entourage?
Oh yeah.
And that was like, and but no, we all knew people like that. Everyone would watch the show. Oh, I know that person. Oh, I know someone just like that. And that was, even when I worked at an agency, they're familiar faces, and that's what was so funny. It looks very dated now, but I remember like being around crowds and everyone, oh, I'm gonna be like Ori from Entourage. I'm not like a big shot. Everyone's gonna.
I feel like, so the thing is that whenever I encounter guys, especially that do those kind of things, it's, what are you trying to, who are you trying to impress here? That's the funny thing. I think they're trying to impress other guys, because I don't think that really works on females.
Oh yeah, not at all.
That's the funny part.
And that's the thing too, because when you think about it, there's always, I think they say with females, like it's mature faster, which I believe is true. And I think a lot of times, okay, when a guy goes, or even in high school, like you have your crowd of friends, and a lot of guys, I feel like a lot of them just perform for other, like they were always, whether it was like older uncles or something, they were always just, even when I was a teenager, just asking me questions like, dude, just like, you can talk to me like a person, don't be, I always hated it when older people were like, so who you into? Or it's just like, dude, what do you care? And just don't be all creepy around me. It's like, it was really, I always hated when adults did that, or when they were like ooh and ah over that stuff. And for me, it was just because I liked to connect with people. It was just like, I was just like, hey, if we're talking, and then it was just, but then that's the thing too, like when you're a kid and everyone's like, oh, he's like, if we're just talking, and let's say we're students, like, oh, they're talking, what are they talking about? Are they into each other? And this, we're like, we're just two people having a conversation. We're seeing if we, so I felt, and I was always really into some of the best times. I remember just at parties, sometimes I would just feel out of place, but I would just need, it could just be anyone. And hey, if we're having a good conversation, you go, hey, you're cool. Someone we can hang out with, we can do something, or
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I feel like sometimes like I do work a lot with like male friends, because I feel like sometimes it is a male dominated world. So like it's inevitable that guys have more of a voice.
Okay.
So, that's the reason why I feel like sometimes though it can sound unfair, like I do think that it is fair in a way where I think that I'm not extremely feminist, so I think it's okay.
Okay. But it's interesting you brought that up too, because and again, what I think the millennial experience, because we're at like the boomers, or they're retiring now, and it's like even just the presidents, it's like we're at that last run of, and for a long time, the boomers, like you look at the 90s, they were dominating entertainment. The 80s and 90s, those are still like staples of American culture, or just even world culture, depending on where you are, I should say. But what I mean by that is like the movies that get made, or the music, or the kind of messages that certain things, and it was just so interesting. Like even the millennial experience for me, it's like, okay, I'm born in the mid 80s, and me and my friends will talk about, I have friends, our favorite movies like Ninja Turtles or Back to the Future, and we remember, what it was like to have dial-up internet. And I remembered what life was like in the 90s. It was like, wow, and internet was so new, and we didn't have all the information. And we don't realize that stuff's always going on. Just what we saw, we had to wait for stuff to be on TV still. So you have like movie theaters, you have the Blockbuster, and then you had television. Now everything happens instantaneous. But with that, it was like there was a turning point. Because growing up in the 90s, we were like, oh, everything's gonna be fine. And everyone told us, just get a college degree and you'll be fine. Then it was 9/11 happens, when we're like coming out in high school, middle school, and then we had that whole era during, and it was an interesting time to be in college, because it was like this was stuff you heard about in history, and everything seemed so You forget, like, growing up in the 20th century and having boomer parents, everything just seemed, oh, it's like Forrest Gump, everything has a happy ending, and we see these, there's just like this kind of observation of that we were being fed, and then it was like, whoa, there's really some serious stuff out there. And like you said, a lot of it is very male driven and male dominated in the sense of where just movies come out. If you watch Forrest Gump now, it's, don't get me wrong, it's a classic, but it's very a male perspective of coming of age in American culture at that time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying certain things are reflective of their time. Yeah. And so then when I graduated college, it was like, that's when the housing crisis happened. And then it was like 10 years. So I'm starting in the agency, and I know what you mean. It was like a frat, and even like and not in a way, because I was in an office job, and the company I worked for was based off of what was happening with, so like when the merger was happening, that was all like on Entourage. Because when being in the industry, even before I started working for, you hear stories, and you hear some of the stuff, and it's like you hear, oh, that person's ruthless. You don't want to get out. Oh, that person will throw something at you if you get an order wrong, or you know what I mean. So you go in there hearing these stories and wanting to. And I never had a boss like that, but I would hear things from other people. Or people, oh, I was in an elevator with this guy, and he's like yelling profanities to a colleague, and the elevator was the longest elevator ride of my life. And I started to see the way things changed with social media, because that was another shift too, because then it was like, oh wow, we're like, even just us like being able to record.
That's the thing though. Do you ever feel like, because like with the whole invention of social media and things like that, like our voices sometimes can actually be a little bit more quieted, whereas like we can't say anything like too dramatic or like too private with the fear that it might be posted online.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, because like sometimes that's something that like with like professionals like that come in, they're like, and I tell them this is some like dating stuff, like where we talk about wellness for dating culture and things like that. They're like, oh, I don't want to talk about my personal life. That's what they say. So I'm like, okay, you know, like, okay. And they talk about something else.
But no, I know, so I think what you're circling in on is where, just what, do we feel we have to perform for people, or does social media make us? Yeah, and truthfully, because I feel like when it first came out, because you even know the Howard Stern. Do you remember what it was like in the 90s?
No.
He was a shock jock. He would say...
Oh, you know what? I think I've seen a book.
It's called Private Parts, like his private parts of his life. But that's because he was a gross... No, I won't say gross, but no, he was a shock jock. And if you watch, it's harder to find some of those. But I just remember growing up, because it was always, my dad had him on in the morning, and they beeped a lot of stuff out. And then you could, even when we were kids, be like, hey, our parents just like, let's watch like an R-rated movie, and we'd see Howard Stern, and the stuff it's nothing like this new image that he's crafted for himself. So what I'm saying is, that was so a part of them, or even like shows like Jackass were like popular in the so a lot of it was shock value, or even like when I know Instagram and social media, people were just saying stuff that were obnoxious and out there. Oh, I'm gonna get a reaction, and then it wasn't until. But I think with that, the good thing was it gave everyone a voice, and then we can all reevaluate and let's say when. I think like something's happening right now with like certain comics. Maybe they had an act 50 years ago, and you watch like an SNL skit from 50 years ago, and you're like, whoa, they were saying like some vulgar language, and you realize back in the 70s, you didn't have smartphones, you didn't have people. I'm sure people would feel offended by stuff, but they couldn't go right to the internet to do it. Instead, the stars of the show were just, oh, it's a ratings hit, we got this. So they're out there thinking, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm a good person, everyone loves me, but there still is a group of people that maybe didn't have a voice then that do have a voice. So now it's like when something happens, everyone's, and I get there's that argument, oh, we shouldn't be stepping on eggshells, and I get it too. I think there should be some transparency. I get it where if it's a corporate sponsor and if you're putting out a message, yes, there's just certain things that, okay, you know what, that was acceptable 50 years ago, but you know what, it's just not for this time now. And and I understand where there's been that recorrect, but I do think when it comes to art and even like storytelling, I feel like just some of the best movies are when you can really depict what happened in a time, or even when you're discussing a character. I think there's an appropriate forum. But what happens is, and with social media, I just think like and I'm seeing it correctly now, because people, like you said, they're being very careful about what they're posting, and I think that's a good thing too. Like they're stopping and pausing. Okay, this is going to be, because this is going to be out there forever. Like you have let's say you have a celebrity who has a book coming out right now, and maybe they lived in a controversial time in the 70s or 80s, and there's some stuff that was that they did back then that was maybe okay. Then they're doing this book tour, and then they're, oh, everything's great. You have the legacy media saying one thing, but now it's like you have podcasters who are digging up those stories and you're just, whoa, like everything that you maybe were trying to cover up for years, people are going to have an open conversation about that.
And I feel like it's more about like the critique that either makes or breaks like whatever is happening. Because like even if somebody wants to tell the true story of their creativity, and it's not even the podcaster's job really to break someone down like that.
Totally.
So, and I'm just like, why are we doing that?
You're knocking someone down, or But like when you say like a podcaster breaking someone down, what don't you like to see?
I feel like the whole cancel culture.
Oh yeah, totally,
it's I mean, sure, someone can like bully somebody in campus or something, and then maybe they get in trouble. But having that in online culture, like I feel like it can really hurt someone.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Like for the long run. And maybe there are somebody that really needs to get canceled, but those kind of people should be in jail.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing, because we talked about Me Too when it happened. And you have to, it was like night and day when it's just funny, like certain movies and I noticed this pre-Me Too, the kind of comedy that were, even like the stuff Howard Stern did in the 90s, that he could never get away with doing that today. And I think everything has its time to say, okay, maybe we can dig up an old clip of Jimmy Kimmel with the stuff he did on the Man Show. It's nothing like how he is on his late night show. No, it was more raunchy, and I think that's growth. I think, okay, when you're like Howard or Jimmy it's like they want that raunchy, edgy persona, and then when it's, okay, I'm like I'm the face of a company or corporation, okay, I gotta tone it down. But it's interesting because the people, and because a lot did need to be addressed, and it was interesting, there were a lot of areas. I remember like when I was like coming up in Hollywood, and every now and again like a friend, male or female, would say, I was at this party and there's this vibe there. So it's, and again, I'm not saying like they didn't admit to any, but it was just like there was a vibe, and then years later someone gets Me Too'd. I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew someone in that circle and they were telling me it was weird. So it doesn't surprise, but then at the same time, it's like we all, even especially growing up in LA and living in LA, you're gonna see some stuff. We're all gonna act, everything's great, we're in such a, and that was the thing too, when everyone was saying, because really, I was like, that I worked with male and female saying, oh, I'll do whatever I have to do to get a movie, or I'll go be with this person, I'll go be with, or I'll go schmooze this person, and everyone joked about it, and you even watch about the shows on television at the time, it was like Entourage, that was like the way people thought, and then it was like, and the interesting thing with Me Too was because there were certain people who at first were very dismissive about this is ridiculous and whatever, and I'm like, wait, but then those same people who said it was ridiculous, they were like 2 months later, and then all of a sudden they had a story that they felt was like Me Too. So it was just, and I felt like that's what social media did, whatever was a popular hashtag, we got to stand together and do this. And then you realize it's all about like virtue signaling, which I think's gone now, because you can say and do stuff 10 years ago or be now people see right through it. And I think that's the benefit of where podcasts have come in, where if a narrative's so curated, we're like, no, we got to believe this, and then when they realize, okay, we can't keep hiding behind this, or we can't keep believing this, okay, then it's like predictive programming, where you start to see movies about, okay, that's how it was,
I think that it just depends on like who you, like where your environment is as well. Like sometimes like I feel you are who you hang out with,
of course. So. I think a lot of things, because like there was a Terry Crews. Did you hear about that story? And it's funny because I knew him from WME. He was like, it was like my first week. Everyone was so nice. He was the nicest guy because he's always plays like an athlete or a tough guy. And he talked about being groped at a party with by an agent there, like one of the top agents there. And it was like, I remember when that happened, and it was like a big thing. And he's gone on and he's talked about stuff that happened, and then it was like, I think a lot of people, and I've been around too, like I said, I came alive during the Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan era and all that, so it's like I've been at parties where things are out of control and they're like, oh, this is so rock star, and it was a lot, when you're young, you want to, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in this mansion, and people are jumping off, but with Terry Crews, he was like, he actually went to the head people and said, and again, it's those people who are like yelling slurs on the phone in an elevator in front of an intern, and then they're publicly saying, we need to ban so-and-so because they said something bigoted behind. Okay, wait a minute. Someone's like drunk and says something and got caught, you have to be canceled, but you're at the office every single day. People have horror stories of being in an elevator with you and you're like crossing line, and then you hire someone who's being inappropriate.
That kind of reminds me of like how like some people can like wear like a Christian necklace, a cross, and be like, I'm a Christian, I'm gonna have 3 kids in the next 3 years, and you find out they're like sleeping with everybody.
Of course. And that's what happened, because 60 years ago, and I'm not downplaying, but if you talk to someone who maybe was Bill Cosby's age or around that time, it's even, and I'm talking women too, I know a lot of women who are around and they're like, oh, we were like, Yeah, I'm not saying like what he was doing was totally wrong, but I understood it was blurry at first because, like you said, he was projected as America's dad. Oh no, Bill Cosby would never do that. But it gets a little shady because you always saw him as this moral guy. Oh, he doesn't do drugs, do this. But you listen. But I've heard stories about womanizing and adultery with him throughout the years. But then if you talk to, there's women that I know who are successful, lived through it and said, oh, in the 70s, if a guy had a Quaalude, we were all like, they were, or oh, everyone was like doing that drug or whatever. So they're like, so even at first people like, wait, what's happening? And then when you see the system and like, whoa, and then you realize who helps. There's handlers, there's different people who had whose jobs and careers were at stake. And then with Bill Cosby, it got to everyone benefited from him to keep things hidden. And then the second it was unavoidable, it was like, all right, we got to let him go. And that was,
And I think that's the most like dangerous part, is that if there's actually like someone in power that keeps everything hidden. And there's also victims too that can't say shit. So I think that's the most like scary part.
It's the scary part, and I do think with social media and the way things are, because even when even just being in environments that I was in, like I was proximity to certain people, so you understand when you're in different people's worlds, there's always different rules. So a lot of, even as a kid, I felt like I had to wear a mask to blend in and just fit in, and then you start hearing something, and then you mentally go along, hey, if you want to be a part of this thing, then you have to be with, and I think that's where just young people in general who are just looking to start a career, they can get, and I mean, I'll be honest, I went down some dark roads. I had a lot of stuff happen to me when I was younger, but with all of that, fast forward all these years and I see where certain people ended up, and again, it's not about me like gloating, it was just kind of, you know what, I'm here, I'm alive, life makes sense, and I think too, even when you're young, like what you're saying, how guys are obnoxious because they don't know any better, and like they're out of college, they just start in an office job, they watch some 80s movie and they think something else. Hey, how's it going? I'm like on the football team. Yeah, we're gonna go out after work. You want to come join? You know what I mean? They think, oh, that's actually gonna work. When in reality, it's no, you're just like the guy everyone's laughing at. But it takes a guy. There was that scene in. Did you ever see Swingers with Jon Favreau?
I haven't.
So it was Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn's like first. Like, it was the movie that made them really famous. And there are these two actors who are trying to make it out. Like they're nobody actors, but and Favreau's like the guy who like came out of a long relationship, he just wants to be in his, and Vince Vaughn's like Mr. BS, he's always, oh no, act like a big shot. And he meets someone and then he messes it up, so it's this one time he takes Vince Vaughn's advice, he goes and tries to act like a big shot, and then she goes, oh yeah, I met you last week right at Starbucks, did you come in and ask me for a job application? It totally blew up in his face, but it was like,
oh my God.
it's like those, but we've all known guys like that, or been in situations where guys I've had friends who have just told fabrications about what they're doing, and sometimes and when you're younger, it's just, okay, everyone's having some drinks and you're like watching, and I always like people watching too, so even when you're watching someone like that, it's mildly amusing. Okay, this is just, and then the girl picks up on it, but
it's just sad sometimes. Like, I'm just like, oh God, I can't watch this.
Oh, exactly. And then you totally know, I'm like, oh gosh, there he goes again, thinking he's a big shot and saying this, and but hey, that's when you're young, that's part of growing up. You're gonna try a bunch of things and find out what works for you, but it's,
like, the thing is this though, like, at least they're trying. I feel like that's the big part. Like, at least, like, they're trying and putting themselves out there. I feel like that's the main part, because if the guy or even the girl sometimes, if they don't try, then they're never gonna end up with somebody, or at least make some kind of connection. And I feel like that's like the main thing that we want here.
I think so too, and I think it took, like, with social media, because I remember when I really started to know, like, we were in a different world. It was a classic horror movie, Carrie, came out in the 70s. It was like a classic movie, Brian De Palma.
No.
Okay, yeah. It was a movie that came out in the 70s. I think it was like John Travolta's first movie with Sissy Spacek. But, so basically she's like a girl who's bullied but has these magic powers. But then, and that was like, so the tormenting was hard enough back then, but then it was like, I remember they remade it like right when social media, so now it was like the torture was happening on cell phones, and then you're like, oh my God. So I remember that was a real awakening to me. Wow, when I was like, even in the 90s, I was like, you could still maybe be in a humiliating situation or have something happen, but now it's like kids have had to grow up in front of, and I do feel like if you're millennial, our parents have the big cameras, so they were always getting us to perform, so there's just something about us that's, we're going to be animated, we're going to be character-y anyway, but then it was like, I feel with this new generation, it's like having a security camera all over you at all times and say, oh my gosh, I hope no one saw that or no one saw me trip or do something. And so I feel it created that kind of anxiety, but now I feel people are just rolling with it. Hey, you fall down, you get back up again, give it another try.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I also feel like sometimes like it can be a little bit lifeless because with the mentality that like even if I try, will it still matter? Like I feel like that kind of mentality is what really kills like the vibe sometimes.
Yeah.
And because if people have lived in LA or like the Orange County area for a long time, they've probably dated each other. Not gonna
LA
lie
is
there.
one very big small town.
So I think that's what kills a lot of the relationships. It's like the lack of effort. And it's not just like the physical effort or that kind of effort, it's like more of the emotional effort.
It's interesting you said about relationships because I do feel like we're seeing and this, like you look, let's take a look at, I think the silent generation, like our grandparents that were born in like the 1920s. So they had to, it was a different time, no technology. They had to survive the Great Depression. They had to rebuild. Even if my grandparents were Armenian, they didn't speak English. My grandmother.
Armenian?
Yeah, my dad's Armenian.
That's cool.
Yeah. My dad's Armenian, and but like his mom and my Aunt Florence, who I was just with over a week, and they didn't speak English when they, Armenian was their first language, so they had to learn. My name would have been Hovey, but they changed their last name to blend in. And again, that was like a different time, like in the 1920s or 30s. But they had the Great Depression, then they had World War II. And you just look at it like information was so controlled. You had to listen, you believed what you heard on the radio, and then when television came in, and then but we all had to be programmed to watch the same things. And I think what happened was, there was a necessity to get married and have kids and to start something. And then everyone just kept following that script. And then when it came down to, just get a degree and get married, or don't get married before you're 30 or whatever. And it was just,
wait, don't get married before you're 30?
That was, if you're my age, if you're a millennial and you grew up in LA, I think that's what our parents said, just graduate college and get a degree and you'll be fine, and don't rush into marriage. And the thing is, I'm not saying, and to each his own, but I think what our parents were getting at, it's like they got married, maybe around like in their 20s or 30s, and then they didn't think they were going to live as long as they did. So by the time they were 50, and I've seen that, and that's why it's like the kids are getting ready to move out, but then the parents, I still might have another 20, 30 years. We're done with the kids, we're done, let's start a new life. And I think so, again, it took that, and again, it's like, I feel like some people, like maybe that's all they know, or I know, like I have family and friends who, even in Orange County, they got married, have kids, and it's great, and I love going there, but it's like with me, it's hard because the environment I grew up in, everyone was like getting divorced, I'm seeing what it does to the kids. So for me, I felt like I had enough, because I had so many cousins, I have such a big family and stuff, so it was like, I always felt like I had to be everyone's older brother, role model, so it was like, it was hard to just be like, have some time. So when I think about it, I'm where I'm at now, and it's like, I can come home, I can put on my AirPods, I can listen to whatever song I want to listen to. If there's a scene from a movie, it's like, you don't have to wait for a movie to come on. Everything's accessible. If I want to go and research something, I can do that. So when I talk to my dad now, he was such a music guy, so I feel like he was always happiest, I think, like listening to one of his songs, but no, Dad, you're gonna be literally, you can be like 40 and just do this and that, and you can listen to whatever song you want, you can put it, and he's, wow, but they lived in a different time, so I think with that comes different ideas of reality. Wow.
Wait, so like when your dad was doing his music stuff, did they have like records?
He had, when he was a kid, he can tell me, he had his Beatles collection, Rolling Stones, and he got a lot of them in the 70s. My dad was born in the 50s, big rock and roll guy. He ended up being the vice president of Elvis Presley Enterprises and director of music publishing. But he can tell you a Rolling Stones concert he went to in the 70s, who opened, what happened, and then say, and then because they played too late, that started a new curfew law. Anyway, it was wow. He's just one of those guys. That's how. But with him, so his refuge, or if he would just he would have to sit, read the book, and then put on a record, and of course that's TV, iPods, and what have you. But it's just what I tell him. Hey, Dad, I just put on my earphones. I'm like, I want to listen to this. I want to listen to that. He doesn't. I don't have to go pick up the record, put it in the player.
That actually brings up another thought. Is he actually adapting to the technology?
But he's older, so it's just it's not like he's not like me where he can just put it on and he can. I walk him through it, and it takes him a while to get stuff. But he gets it. He texts me, he memes me. But it's just when I tell him no, Dad, you just have to get an iTunes subscription, and any song you want is right there on your phone.
That's so funny. Does he enjoy it?
Now he does. I feel the stuff even I turned my mom on to this. Hey, Mom, listen, this program will be. Oh my gosh, it's got. So it's, and again, it's just there's so many. And you get older, and I've helped my parents adapt to stuff, and then even yeah, it's just funny when they're like, even my grandfather used to say, boy, I tell you, I was born 50 years too early, or just like the kids, stuff you kids get to enjoy now. And, but then hey, in 50 years, there's going to be a new generation. They're going to have their own. And you realize, I think that's the thing too, is like, even I'm very grateful that I had my grandparents as long as I did. I got to know them all through adulthood. They lived to be in their 90s. And then even with like my parents, you start to realize, and just even other relatives, like at a certain age, it's like you start to forget what, or like the world you remember. Let's say like you were an adult in the 70s and 80s. And again, you adapt with the times, but still, when you get older, the memory goes, and then you have a hard time. So you do, and then you have all this new technology, and sometimes it's easy to explain. But it's for me and you, it would be easier for us to just pick something up than it would be to someone who's 30 years older who lived through different experiences. So it is that thing you at a certain age, when the memory goes, and I've seen it happen more often, where it's like you're still in the world that's familiar to you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. I feel like it's a lot easier to say, oh, hey, we're moving to this technology now, to like someone like that's already like immune to the technology that's here today. But of course, I feel like the reactions that the older people give are so much more funnier and cute.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, like, you've never seen it before. They're like, oh my God. Oh, I love that.
Oh, you should see my my grandfather. I'm showing him my iPhone, and it was like, oh, did you check it? I just told him, what? Yeah, I just sent this, like, I text him, Dad will be there in like an hour or something. He's like, oh yeah, look, you can check your socks. He's like, this is unbelievable. It was like we went into the future, and he just couldn't believe what was happening.
Yeah, especially because like they had like letters back then.
Oh gosh, they had to like write a letter. Oh gosh, he was like stationed if they were in the army or something.
That's crazy.
You know it.
Oh my gosh. Are there like any other topics that you wanted to talk about here?
Yeah, I really like what you've done with the show. So what got you into wanting to be podcasting?
The thing is, like in the beginning, this was all like questions I would ask myself. What kind of person, or this is actually a question I could ask to you too.
Sure.
What are like some ideal traits you would look for in like a partner?
Okay, and again, like I'm older, like I've been through the college phase. So for me, it's like where I'm at in life, it's if I'm looking for something in a partner, definitely reliable, someone that I connect with, and I look for someone that kind of compliments me. I know what I can do. I know what's easier for me, what's harder for me. So I feel like we always look for a companion where there's a camaraderie like that, and then
So these are questions that I would ask myself before I would step out into every like date I would go on, and like when I would come back and I felt like this isn't right. Like I don't really like this date, and I would ask more questions to myself. It was just, it started off as a journal, and then I was thinking, why does dating in LA suck so much? And then I realized maybe it's because we're going on so many dates, and maybe like we're meeting a lot of people at the same time.
Totally.
And it's just like a generalization. Maybe like I myself or like other people in like bigger cities are scared to like commit to one person.
Right, of course.
Because you don't know if they'll commit to you too.
Got it.
So that's like how it started. And I was thinking, especially like I was talking to you earlier, in media, like it's hard to know who your friends are.
Oh, of course.
And so I don't know like who I can tell how I feel about this issue. And so I was like, okay, I'm writing things down. I can talk about it, but do I really know if this person is my friend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why like how I got this podcast started. Initially, I wanted it to be like an AA thing, where like you would tell things or stories with the names totally being anonymous. Like we wouldn't share any names, just the story.
No, and I think you're right to do that. And the thing too is, I feel like, I do think the thing is, because there's so many options now, and even when we're talking about maybe the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about LA. So let's face it, LA is a place, people come here because they want to make it big, whether it's like running a company. It used to be like, oh yeah, everyone came here because they make movies here, and everyone wants to be on TV or be a producer or work at a big corporation or company. And so people come out here with that energy, and then you realize, and again, like I've been the low man on the, just like you're like, I've been the intern, I've been the assistant and everything, and it was part of growing up. So then you're in those environments and everyone's, oh, you're just an assistant, oh, you're just, so that alone, I think, and that's just what happens in life. We're always trying to not dress for the job we have, the job that we want. So you're around a lot of ambitious people, and you feel, okay, part of it too is even getting in the doors, like doing a good audition. And I think earlier it was harder to meet people because it was like, okay, you had to be in, people went out because you had to go out to meet people. Now you can just turn on your phone and I guess, was it Tinder, they swipe and they try that.
Tinder.
I was in a comedy about Tinder dating. I played like The Office. All right, I'm gonna go out this bit. Yeah, but it was funny. And it was like 10 years ago, but it was very interesting. This concept and the story that got me thinking, oh, okay, this is how people are meeting nowadays. But so I think that's interesting in the sense of, because there's like third date talk, but basically, let's say, okay, so we meet up, coffee. Oh, where'd you go to school? Where do you work? And whatever. Now it's like we can look at each other's profiles. We know who our mutual friends are. Yeah. So it's really, I do think it's a bit safer, but with that, and again with LA, everyone's always looking for the bigger, better deal when they're hungry. And that was the thing I got hit to, even amongst family members and people trying to even get into my circles of friends. You realize, oh, people are trying to get close to me for this. They have an agenda. And it took being burned a few times, and even just, I look at even just some relationships that even were friendships that were just kind of like, that person helped me elevate me to this focus in my life. And I just feel like a lot of people, they might rush into it or have a kid because they feel that they need to. And there's nothing wrong with whatever you want to do, but I do know people who had kids too early and now they're like, then they can't wait till the kid's 18 so they can go party and live their 20s again like they didn't. Or so it's to each his own, but I think that there's just a lot of options more than ever right now, and you can find out what works for you. And just because the phase, I know, and I remember what it was like even in my 20s, it wasn't like, there was maybe one person I actually thought, hey, this could be a future with, but everyone else, and then after that, I'd go out and I get it, okay, this person, wants to know if this deal will happen, so we're hanging out, we're spending time, but I don't see a future there, you know what I mean? And you feel, oh, I'm clicking with this person, but you realize, and then we get into that fairy tale thing in our head, oh, it's gonna be this, I'm in love with this person, I feel this, and then you realize we're living. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, it's not the fairy tale ending. Life is a lot more complex. And it does take, I think, in your 30s to really get there. And then I think you just wake up, you're like, you just know what works for you. And you're no longer trying to check the boxes. Oh, did I accomplish this, that? And I think now social media it's always going to be a thing. And it's that next level of technology where, and hopefully, like you said, like all that, because even like you say, cancel culture, certain things that were the last thing, everyone's, okay, that's run its course, everyone's done this. It's like everyone's had something, but then if they're amplifying this, and it's been good at bringing light to certain things, but at the same time, I think there's been some positivity to it, and I think we're living in a great time, and our options are open. You just gotta, embrace it and go with the rhythm.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. To a certain extent, like I feel like because there are more options, like it's like we have more chances to like be like, okay, like I am open to more opportunities. But at the same time, like I do think that because if we keep having that mindset, like I don't think I'm ever gonna get married. Oh. That's how I feel. Like in the back of my mind, I know like someday, like I should probably like, there's an age limit that I have like in my own mind that I think I probably should settle down. But it's probably because like I'm a woman. Yeah.
If you don't mind, you don't have to say the number. Yeah. In what age bracket would you put yourself in? Post-college, pre?
I graduated grad school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in that, all right, so you're in that chat, like, how recently did you graduate grad school?
2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, no, so I can, again, not judge you, no, I'm just saying I can understand where you are, career and ambition, and I think that's very sane and very right to think, hey, to put goals for yourself, but at the same time, I think certain people, when they say, oh, if I'm not married by 30, I think my grandma used to say something like, oh, you were an old maid if you didn't get married until out of high school or whatever. You needed to.
Well, that's the thing though. I actually have been engaged before.
Okay, yeah.
And this was like in my earlier 20s though, because I went to a private Christian school for undergrad, and there was a saying in my private school, like ring before spring, like when everybody graduated. So there was an expectation that everybody would be married to like each other because it was
I understand.
And so at the time, like the closest male friend I had was my best friend from high school. Okay. And so we got engaged, but it just didn't go that well.
But see, and look, and you validated that, you acknowledged that, and so it's good if you want to set goals, but at the same time, it's because sometimes like I just stopped. Like it's good, like I set bars and goals, but it's like if this doesn't happen, I learned there's certain things you just can't control, and it's just but to come prepared, ready to take on whatever, and then sometimes you get led to what you want in different ways. But I think there's always this, because when you watch like movies or rom-coms, it's always, oh, I have to have this, has to be perfect, and I feel like for a lot of us, we got it built in our head when we had everything. Oh, it's got to be the right song, the right moment, the right this, and you realize life is just, you got to go with the rhythm now. And I'm guilty of it too. I would just think, I did this, I should have this now, and I should be there. But I had to rediscover stuff after the pandemic. That was the third between 9/11, housing crisis, and then pandemic. It was like, that's why my generation we're like, okay, we can't really afford to have a family or buy a house or anything. So but they say that because we've had to rebuild now I do feel like there's a lot of opportunities, and even with social media, it's bringing attention to stuff that was always there. People say, oh, wasn't things better in the 90s? Yeah, it was better in the 90s because we didn't know. Certain outlets control the narrative, and now you can see what's happening in a small town because everyone's got a flip phone and can report on it as it's happening. It doesn't get filtered through, oh, it's like hearsay or something,
Yeah, and I feel the public news, like, I don't know, like KTLA or something like that, it's actually like being like brought down, like general news.
Right.
I'm not gonna name specifics, but I would just say like the general news is actually being like unvalidated a little bit more because things they're posting on social media. Like there's like bigger things in the Middle East or something.
Yeah.
And they're posting about how a police officer got upset about a pig drawn on their boba cup or something.
Oh, I think I heard. Oh, I don't know the whole. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, like, really?
I think, and that's the other thing, because there was a time when TV, like, you believed. Like, I remember having conversations with people my dad's age, like, no, you believe everything, like the news anchors. Oh, they're all right. They're this and then. But even when you work in entertainment, like I said, there might be someone who's preaching about, oh, I'm all about this, and then they can turn around and like yell obscenities and have bad language and stuff that goes against what they're saying they're about. It's just, or even it's just at a certain point, like we were saying about Kimmel or Howard Stern, it's like, there's certain things that might be a shtick or whatever, but then as you get older, you're in a more corporate position, then you change your views on. And that's just, I think that's just growing for Howard to own, hey, that's who he was, and then. But hey, in his 70s now. He's in a new chapter of his life. So I think that's a good thing, and not to hold people in it. But I think what we were saying, where it gets so preachy and you feel like, oh, this. And then you realize like certain outlets are going to report stuff that fits a narrative. You know what I mean? And then it's just, right now we have so much information we don't know what to do with, but I don't fear a lot of stuff that you would hear on the news or this, because at the end of the day, look, I still see people in fancy restaurants dining. People are like on television saying whatever they want. They're on their phones saying whatever they want to do. I don't feel, it might feel like the world's collapsing or what, but it's a different time. It's just going to take some shifting gears, but I think it's done are the days where you can like just turn on a familiar face at night and say, everything's okay, go to sleep, and here's a few jokes. So I feel like that's why the traditional sense, where it's even, because I like to turn on podcasts and just people I don't even know, I'm like, hey, they got an interesting perception. I like their view on this.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Would you be able to share a little your social media? So
Absolutely.
We know where we can.
Definitely. My name is Kash, Kash. Last name is Hov as in Victor, EY. I'm on social media, Instagram, and you can watch my show On Air with Kash on YouTube. And I just really want to thank Anna for having me on the show. And she actually came to a film festival that we host annually at Film Fest LA at LA Live. And I'm always down to connect with new people and hear some new stuff, and it's great.
Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Anna, for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can support our cause by going to buymeacoffee.com/AnnaYU. That's YOO. More support means more episodes. The link is in the episode description. Also, don't forget to visit our Instagram page for exclusive behind-the-scenes content at It Starts With You. And remember, it starts with you.